You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Business owners and entrepreneurs, with us today is a founder, investor, university professor, author, and problem finder. His name is Sid Mohasseb with Anabasis Incorporated. We'll be talking about wonderful things like reasons to profits, the refined exchange-driven business model, and how profits and revenue are a false narrative to an end result instead of you being directly responsible. Sid, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
I am excellent, and thank you for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. So if you'd like to start out asking our guests about their entrepreneurial journey, tell us where you first started, that experience, and where it led you to today.
So I know you have limited time, and I'm old, so it's a long story, but I'll keep it short. I started my first business when I was in college. I exited that business, started as a management consultant, as an analyst, became the partner of the firm. I was the youngest partner, and that period I helped really large organizations, from Motorola to Federal Reserve Bank to IBM, and a really large entity. Then I started my own firm with the objective of doing turnarounds, which is buying companies that are not doing well and turning them around. Because I saw a few of my clients who were in Wall Street, they were doing really well. And then I said, hey, I like to be on the other side of this formula. Did some turnarounds in the 90s, bought companies from the likes of DuPont. And during the same time, I started kind of in a serendipity manner. It wasn't planned. I looked and found opportunities to build other companies. So I built 5 companies, mostly software, technology-driven kind of stuff. So one of them didn't work, which was during the dot-com era, and it became pretty big with venture capital and all of that backing it. Then I started a company in the electronics distribution business, which was a carve-out. Carve-out means you take a piece of one company and bring it out. And the strategy really worked. We opened up offices in Europe and in China and in US, and increased the revenue by about 30-fold. Sold that and became an entrepreneur, investor type of a guy. So I became an angel investor, made investments, which I still do, was the president of the largest angel investment entity in US. Started a venture fund and made investments into that. About 2010 or so, I had a lot of investments and I was on board of one. I jumped in as the CEO of one of the companies to drive it to an exit. We sold the company about 9-10 months later to KPMG, which led me to be a part of KPMG. As you know, they're a large advisory and accounting firm, a $26 billion one. I helped them build a fund, $100 million fund. The entity that they purchased from us is now about 2,000 people or so across the globe. And I ended up being the head of strategic innovation for the strategy group there. And that was until about 5-6 years ago. Then I started writing a couple of books, which is now, that's what I do. I write a lot of articles, from Time Magazine to Harvard Business Review to London School of Economics to Newsweek and USA Today and so forth. So I think I have something to say, and I write a lot, and thankfully people think that there's something there. So that's part of my life. Another part is I still make investments in early stage companies, do some advisory work with larger companies. And about a third of my time, I teach at University of Southern California, USC, both in the business school and in engineering school. So that's me.
Sid, wow, what an impressive resume. All that you've accomplished, you're so driven and you continue to learn more. Where did this drive come from? Why do you pursue to be better and better and better each day and have such impressive results across the board? Is there anything you can
So
attribute to that?
I'll give you the short answer, but I encourage your audience and you to watch a TEDx talk that I did. I've done a couple. The latest one is called The Art, the Artist, and the Entrepreneur, which tells you some of my beliefs. One is that I believe change is our friend, not our enemy. And it's not that we have to manage it, we have to navigate it, we have to make it. because it's the only thing in the world that gives us options. Nothing else gives you options. I mean, you'd be stagnant, you would be sameness, you would be in the same place without prosperity, without growth, without change. You have no options. So I have believed that, and what drives me is essentially the notion of creativity. Prior to starting the show, you were asking me what do you do and what's your company. I sit on a number of boards. I still am involved with a lot of different companies. Some are in technology, some are in material science, some are in distribution. And I enjoy building, I enjoy creating. And this is not something I figured out at the beginning. This is something I have figured out in the past maybe few years, that I am an entrepreneur, not because I've decided to be an entrepreneur, but because we're all entrepreneurs. But it has been triggered. It's like a fuse. It's in our genes. 500,000 years ago, this is a Texas A&M study. We developed a gene in humans, which drives us to not only survive, but thrive. Not only try to kind of maintain and be defensive in what we have, but change our status. Now, if you go back to the definition of entrepreneurship, which was done about in the 1700s by a Frenchman originally, an entrepreneur is defined it as someone who has something and wants to change it of higher value. About 50 years later, an Irishman added a modification, says an entrepreneur is someone who has something. Now, this could be your time, this could be an idea, this could be a product. An entrepreneur is somebody who has something and wants to exchange it with something of higher value, knowing that there is risk. So, yes, you want to change it with something better, but it may not happen. So, if you take that definition, any student that goes to college is an entrepreneur because they have something. Maybe it's their time, maybe it's their effort, sleepless nights, hard work, their own money, credit cards, or their parents' money, or loans, or whatever. They have something, and they aim to exchange that for something better, a better life, education that drives them with better salaries, better opportunities. But there is a risk. The fact that you went to school doesn't necessarily make you Bill Gates or Elon Musk. So they take a risk. So the first part is you have something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have a product and you're selling it for money. You have something, which we all do. The other part is you exchange it with something of higher value. And you, my friend, decide what is of higher value. So, Mother Teresa was an entrepreneur. She just decided to exchange her time and effort and connections and fundraising in order to solve poverty or hunger. Yeah, Elon Musk has decided a different thing. Martin Luther King decided a different thing. They each were exchanging what they have. So how did I become an entrepreneur? I guess I was one. I'm an immigrant from Iran. I came to the States when I was 16 years old by myself. And I realized that every immigrant is an because we exchange what we have and we aim to get something better. And there is a risk. You see all these people coming into U.S. from all over the world, and they get stuck in rivers and this and that and get killed, and all of that challenges. They risk. And when they come here, it's not necessarily, hunky-dory, somebody will give them $1,000 bills as they enter. They've got to hustle. There's no guarantees. So they do exchange their life with something better. So we're all entrepreneurs. The question now becomes, do you know that you're an entrepreneur? And do you realize what you have? And have you decided what you want to exchange what you have with? What do you consider of higher value?
Wow, what a fascinating and insightful perspective into entrepreneurship. That is kind of blowing my mind right now in the way that we define entrepreneurship. We're always taking these calculated risks. We have something of value that we want to exchange for higher value. And that higher value is up to us, what we determine it to be and what we want to exchange that time, labor, or money for. It's all about that exchange and giving more value. I love that perspective, Sid. Thank you. Now, when it comes to business, this reason to profits, is this about like your passion and your purpose and making money from it? Or what is the reason to profits, like that refined exchange-driven business model? What is that about?
Yeah. I teach at an MBA program in one of the top universities in the U.S. But I believe we have been influenced, or let's call it bamboozled, misdirected by Wall Street drives of making profit and revenue the measure of success. So let me ask you one thing. Your audience would see a guitar in the back and behind you. That guitar means something to you. You purchased that guitar for a reason. Who made the decision to buy that guitar?
I want to say it was me who made that decision.
It was definitely you. It was entirely you. The sales guy at that guitar shop could not sell that guitar to you unless you made that decision, okay? And there was a series of reasons that you made that choice. You made it because you may have done some research and you like the sound. You like the sexy look of that guitar. You liked it because somebody that you knew and you inspired to be had a similar guitar. You bought it because you could play at some parties or some places or for your loved ones. You bought it for those reasons. You didn't buy it because it was a means of making music. You did not buy that. This guitar is very different than any other guitar for you. We don't buy a car because it's a means of transportation. All cars are a means of transportation. So the functionality, and you can have the best salespeople come tell you about, they can't force you to buy a car. But you may buy a Ferrari, I may buy a Volvo. Somebody is, environmentally conscious and buys an EV. Somebody buys a Mini Coupe. Somebody buys a BMW. We all have our own reasons. It's the bundle of satisfaction that we have. That's the reason we buy. Okay? So we're the ones who decide what companies make. They're not the ones that have big sales force and this and that. You and I, we make the decision of making money for companies. So if companies can figure out the reason I buy and give me that reason, then I'm satisfied and I have no choice but to buy. So my sales guys are not the bamboozling guys. I'll drive for 10% more to it. Drive for 10% better reason. Now, every company has 5 pillars. They say customers are kings, but no king, nirvana, without the society and the rest of the people being involved. It's not a singular act. I am the king. Now, those 5 pillars, yes, one of them is customers. Another one is employees. We think we give people a job. In reality, they accept a job. In reality, when they accept the job, they have their own reason. This company has a good benefit. I'll take this job at this salary because I've got to pay the rent. I take this job because this is close to home. I take this job because there is some sort of a school close to it that I can drop off my kids in. I take this job because it has lots of options and I would be very wealthy. And I take this job at this salary with these considerations in exchange for X amount of my creativity, innovation, and time. You as an employee decide what you will give back to the company in terms of creativity, commitment, time, effort. At 3 o'clock in the morning, you check off, or at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you check out. You decide that when you're sitting at that table, at that desk, in front of that computer, or in front of the stage, or in a booth in front of people at a restaurant, or you decide what you're going to give back. Company does not. Company has desires, but has no control over it. So it is your reasons as an employee that drives productivity, that drives commitment, that drives you to be your best at the job, to bring your best. So company has no control. It's an illusion of control. Now, do they influence? Of course, a company can influence. They can begin to offer you or the likes of you as an employee the right value proposition, the right bundle of satisfaction. So you are engaged, and that becomes the culture.
Speaking of culture and companies today versus years ago, it seems like over the past 50 to 100 years, there was this fight from the working people to have more control, to have more power, to have their own say in some of the decisions of the company or what they get paid, trying to understand their own value. And even today, with the consolidation of a lot of companies, we're seeing that they're no longer innovating. They're no longer bringing new products to the market or Many of them don't even listen to their clients or their customers, or just treated as consumers. When you mentioned before about the focus is just on the shareholder profits or the profits in their pocket, how do we as the consumers, the clients, the customers regain that control and that power, or how do we focus more on it? I know
So
they
let
say
me
vote with your
let me
dollars.
give you the other pillars as well, and then we'll come back to this, if I may.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. So I said there are 5 pillars. So there's customer, employee, also investors. Investors invest for reasons. Okay. It may be profit, but it also may be that they have an affinity for a cancer company because their mom had cancer, or they love environment, or whatever. Then there is the partners that you work with, the supply chain people, the people that they work with you for a reason. It may be because you're Apple and they get credibility. It may be that you pay fast. It may be that your volume is good. It may be you're a nice guy. It may be that you're aligned on some political front. I don't know. There is a reason. And lastly, it's the society that you operate with, the community that you operate with. So those 5 pillars hold an organization up. And each pillar has a series of reasons. Okay? Series of value demands, exchanges of their commitment, their money, their effort with something that you give them as a company. That is an exchange. Okay? Now, the trick is these things are always changing. They're always in flux. The same customers that are 25 to 35. These 25 to 35 people are not the same people that were 10 years ago. These are different people. The regions are changing all the time. Technology provides them with 30, 40 years ago, if we would order something and we would get it within a week, we would be happy. We could go to the library and search for things and do things. But now Google has taught us that I need it in 8 seconds. This is the 8-second rule. I need something within 8 seconds. I push it. And if it takes longer, I'm upset. Amazon has taught us that things can actually be delivered in the same day. That's something. So we've been trained by technology that there is a better, and we deserve it. So we want it. So this dynamic of people being changing, you mentioned employees. Employees now want to work from home. They didn't. Now, there is another whole issue that we could talk about, which is, I'm actually writing an article about this, so you're the first one I'm talking about this idea.
I love it. Let's hear it.
So what we've done with this notion of we want to work from home, which is a great idea. Somebody like me, my wife tells me that I've just moved my office to my home, and I work harder than I did at my office. So does my wife claim. I'm a self-driven guy. The way I do it is I actually get up in the morning. No, I'm not in my shorts. I take a shower. I actually dress up. I put my shoes on. I put my clothes on. And then I come to what we have done, though, with the notion that a lot of people, unfortunately, particularly some programmers, have taken 2 jobs. So they have this job. They're also doing this other job. Remember the value exchange? They're saying, you're giving me $50 an hour. I really deserve 100. So I'm going to take 2 jobs. And I'm at home, and I can do it. I give you 50% of my commitment, and I give this other guy 50% of my commitment. Or people can't be found when there is a meeting. Where is this guy? He's supposed to be working from home. You text him. He's out there walking the dog. Well, if you were at the office, you wouldn't be doing that. So what has happened is this problem. We have turned companies into police states. We, the employees, have made companies into a police state. Now, our computers are being monitored. Oh, privacy. Why are they monitored? Well, because a lot of people abused this freedom. So now managers have to be calling people and, hey, let's get on the line now. Well, we have tools that embedded in the systems. So we do some of this stuff ourselves. Okay, it's a problem. Now, let's go back to your question. There's this notion of work-life balance that people have been pushing. I think that's nonsense. What we need is whole life balance. If you're spending 8 hours of your time at work, that is part of your life. It is not separate from your life. And balance means 2 things are equal. So I need 8 hours here, therefore I need 8 hours here. Okay? Now, if you consider your whole life, and then you consider the 5 pillars, what we really need is harmonize these pillars. It's not about balance. It's about harmony. And harmony means things are changing all the time. You're a musician. Think of a company as a symphony, an orchestra, with different instruments in it, each instrument being one of these pillars. Now, in a symphony, in a music, there is no exact balance of play. Your guitar doesn't play exactly 10 minutes, and then the drums play for 10 minutes, and then the saxophone. No, it's this blending of harmony that makes that symphony wonderful. It's not balanced, mixed up. If I'm at work, this is part of my life. I must enjoy it. I must embrace it. I must get the value from it every minute of every day. Just as I would take my son for a baseball game, I should. So if we think that way and we look at a company as an orchestra that is creating beautiful music, sometimes it has to be choreographed and sometimes it's a jab because we don't know. There's uncertainty in life, but it's always in flux. And these pillars and the value they demand are always, if I give more to my employees in terms of salary, I'm giving less to my investors. If I give more to my investors, I may compromise my quality to my customers. If I take away from my partners and squeeze them on every penny for supply chain players and purchasing stuff, yeah, I may have more money, but I've squeezed them. I'm not in harmony with them. So here's the thing. Profit and revenue are outcomes. They're an outcome of this process of harmonization of value. If you're harmonizing the values, you will make beautiful music. You will have a wonderful company. It's always harmonized and it will make money. Without a doubt, it will make money as an outcome. If I give you the value that you deserve and you like, the bundle of satisfaction, you will buy. If I provide the right value to my employees, they will commit because they're people and they like to exchange what they have for something better.
That is so true. It's such a unique angle to take on the profit and revenue, just considering the pillars that make up a company and how integral the customer satisfaction piece is going to be. If you don't have customers, there is no revenue. The happier you make your customers, the more likely they are to use your product or buy it more often or tell their friends and family, give you rave reviews online. Too many of these companies, I feel, focus on the short-term gains.
That's the way we've been trained. I'm not against making a profit. Guess what? I've built companies. This is what I do for a living, making money off of activities and businesses and value creation. I'm absolutely your ultimate capitalist. But capitalism has changed to elitism. It's not capitalism. Capitalism is you hold up the risk that you take and you get something and you deliver value. This is what America was built on. If you go back 50 years ago, it wasn't about profits. A company was in the business of delivering some value and the owners will benefit and they will take the risk that if they don't do that, they will go bankrupt. Now, we are bailing out whoever because they're too big to fail. The reason they're bankrupt is because they did not satisfy. They didn't save enough money. They didn't do the right thing. And the shareholders are just, okay, we're not responsible. Well, if you have a small business, you and your wife, you and your son, you alone, you're the shareholder. If you make a mistake, if you don't provide the right stuff to your employees, if you don't provide the right value to your customers or your partners, guess what? You go broke. And you are responsible for that risk. You would lose your savings. You would lose your company. But guess what? Somebody invests in Delta Airlines, they screw up, they give somebody $150 million bonus, and the company goes broke. Guess what? The shareholders are not responsible. The management is not responsible. We'll go out to the pockets of the taxpayers and we pay them something to bail them out. Now, that is not
Exactly.
capitalism. That's not creating value. That's not providing value. That's not who we were. That is not what capitalism is all about. And I believe the future of our world depends on the entrepreneur. And that doesn't mean just making money. It means the person who is a social worker and understands what she is giving for her time and effort in exchange for the wellness of the society, that has value. Every entrepreneur, every one of us, if we exchange what we have and we're willing to take the risk with something better, we'll survive and we'll do well.
It's a great optimistic perspective to have. It seems that we are privatizing the profits of these companies, but socializing the losses, just as you described, where they make bad
Exactly right.
decisions, they take too many risks, the wrong risks, and they end up getting rewarded for that. And that's not true capitalism. We have this elitism, as you explained. And it's important that we, as the clients, consumers, the everyday working people, do our best to take back control or that power over what they're offering us. It seems they are taking away these benefits and ideas and no innovation.
See what happens. I'm going to give you a few examples. Let's start with the ultimate poster boy for entrepreneurship, Mr. Elon Musk. Okay? He's absolutely brilliant, no doubt about it. No questions asked. But he had this SpaceX people who were given such a value proposition. The exchange was absolutely right. These are brilliant people who want to explore Mars, who want to go beyond what we have. These are smart people. And they work hundreds of hours a week. And he had the Tesla folks who wanted the environment to be safe, and they're creating a new thing, a new vision for the world. And they work. Then he purchased Twitter. Those people have a different exchange of value. They're not the same people. So it didn't work. It's still not working. These people are not bringing their best, not bringing their creativity, not committed to the company. Now let's see what happened there. The same week that he laid off 10% of his employees, which is okay. You have to lay people off. They're out of balance. It's perfectly fine. And we'll go to why they're out of balance, because there was another pillar that was compromised. The same week that he let go of 10% of his people, he was in court or fighting for a $56 billion bonus for himself. That's imbalance. That's not harmony. The guy that has 2 kids, and the kids are going to college and has to buy milk and sugar and feed them and pay for the schooling and for his mortgage, is out of a job. And the guy who's the wealthiest person on the planet is asking for another $56 billion.
This almost sounds like a dystopia. This can't be real, but
This is what I'm saying.
happened already.
This is when the balance is off. So here's another thing. He came out a while ago and said, hey, in order to protect Tesla and its competitiveness globally, we have to drop our price. Yeah, that business-wise, that's okay. We have to compete. But he sold some cars at X dollars. And next week, he hasn't even delivered those cars. Next week or 2 weeks later, he says, I haven't delivered those cars, but the price of your car that you paid is now 20% less. What the heck? The balance, the value exchange with the customer got off balance.
How do we get back into balance? This balance between corporations and people.
Balance between those 5 pillars. And the role of a leader is a conductor who harmonizes these pillars. When you lose that and you're forced to, hey, Wall Street wants us to do more. I'll give you another example. And this is not discovered. People don't talk about it. It's going to come out soon. Maybe it is coming out. So here's the thing. We have, as US, a big issue with China's AI enhancement and superiority claims and advancements and speed to betterment, whatever you want to call it. We say, oh, you can't have NVIDIA. Oh, you can't have this. You can't have that. Right? We do that. We kicked out Huawei. We're against TikTok, all that sort of stuff. Now, last week, Mr. Musk was in China and he did a deal, and it's all over the place. The stock went up by, I don't know, almost 80%, 60%, whatever it was, because he made a deal with China. He made a deal with China, and that's why it was what a great business move. Wall Street loved it. Now, let me tell you what the deal was. The deal was that he is now going to share the data captured from Tesla cars with Baidu, which is the Google of China. Now, you know what makes a great AI machine? Data. So he compromised today. All of the stuff that we were saying, oh, let's control China, he gave them such an amazing data set that is unbelievable. They're going to have the next generation of autonomous cars and enhancements because now they have the data, they can train their systems. And every Tesla that moves in China is giving them more and more data. Hey, did Wall Street like it? Yeah. Has he created another imbalance with society? Of course he has. But Wall Street loved it. So
Why are we, why is the focus always on Wall Street, like within our economy and like indicators to say, it's doing
that's the
well?
problem that I was saying. That's because they focus on profits and revenue. They focus on profits and revenue, not the value. Give me one of these Wall Street analysts that measures the value delivered to customers. None. Value delivered to employees. None. All the KPIs that they measure is inventory to this, sales to that, margins to this, capitalization to that, revenue, 52-week stock price. All that is purely driven by things that are outcomes and not inputs. You want a value input? The value that's delivered, the exchange that happens, the bundle of satisfaction with all of those different elements. Make a CEO a great CEO if he or she can harmonize those value exchange. That's how great
Wow.
companies have been built in the past. That's how great companies will be built in the future.
And I hope we can begin to focus more on that. And that's almost my own, self-reflection I had with my own company and businesses. What kind of business owner do I want to be? I don't want to replicate a lot of the grimy ones who are putting profits over people. I want to give back to my community. I want to help the mom and pop businesses that actually support the local community as opposed to it's going somewhere else. How do
That
we as
is your decision of value exchange, Chris, and it's perfectly fine. Here's the thing. Why am I on your show? I don't make a dime out of this. I'm old. I'm not trying to build a practice of this. The reason I'm on your show is to provoke people, because I believe entrepreneurship is our way out. And this harmonizing will get our communities better, will get our societies better, will get our companies better, will make profits and revenue for people, will treat our employees differently, and will make America great. Entrepreneurship has to be realized, that has to be that. And we people have to believe, I like to provoke people, that you are an entrepreneur. You may not realize it, you may not acknowledge it, but you are. And when you realize that it's not about money, it's about an exchange. You can perfectly find that if you want to exchange for money, that's perfectly fine. But remember, that exchange has 5 pillars, and it's not just one-dimensional. Unless you're a crook, unless you are a fast-willy, fast-talking bullshitter, that's a different story. There's a lot of people that want to do that. Our way to prosperity is about realizing that change is here and it's our friends, that we are an entrepreneur, that we have to focus on the 5 pillars of exchange because they're always there and they're always in flux. And essentially, being an entrepreneur in every aspect of our life.
Absolutely. But there's no doubt that there's tons of opportunity out there and millionaires are made every day. And it's interesting to see what new value exchanges come about. For example, TikTok. Everyone now was able to become their own little content creator making videos, and it opened up the floodgates for other people to create whatever educational, entertaining content that they wanted to make. And those opportunities exist despite how difficult it is with today's capitalism, where inflation is running wild.
So here's the thing. Isn't capitalism about the fact that if somebody has a superior product and does a better job, should win?
That's usually the idea, or at least have some options.
TikTok is over 170 million people in US. That's more than almost half of America that are using it. And guess what? The data is not going to China. That's a nonsensical thing because that sells. Put that fit. You know why we should fear them? Because they know about every person, about what they buy. And it's not the kids under 13 years old are not on TikTok. They can't get on it. It's about they know the transactions. They know. It's the same as Facebook. So we're saying, hey, Instagram and this and that can't do that. So this is an unfair business advantage. They're winning. Let's innovate better things as opposed to trying to pull the other guy down. No,
Absolutely.
I'm not pro-China, but I'm pro-innovation and creativity. Let's go to it. Let's be the America that built shit.
Thank you. You're thinking objectively. You're creative, and you're just being real about the existence of bad things that exist and the hypocrisy. And we're almost being gaslit by our own government that they're saying TikTok is doing these things when we know very well other social media are doing similar things.
Nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. It has to do something with us as people, that we are force-fed this nonsensical thing. And the thing is, we were afraid of Russia in the past, the big evil, the Cold War. Now they're making us afraid of this thing. Until we're afraid, we are contained. Why are we afraid of China? Yes, they're better. They're building things. Okay, let's go build things. Let's be entrepreneurs. Let's create stuff. Let's pull together. Let's not fight over nonsensical things that we fight over, that we're being confused with.
We don't need to be pulling these other companies down or competition down. Make a better product, innovate, give more value.
That is the start of the fall of an empire, when we are going into a defensive mode, trying to pull others down. That's the other thing. We have short-term visions. And if somebody comes in and says, oh, I raised the tariff on this, or I got the such and such bill about the chip market, then I am really being against the evil of that empire or this empire or that empire. And I get votes. The reality is we haven't done anything. What did we do with Japan? In the 80s, we said, oh, these people just copy. Guess what? Then they came out with Toyotas of the world and Hondas of the world, and they beat us at our own game.
And they did it better. The Toyotas last way longer.
They did it much better. Are the Chinese going to do the same? You bet they are. They're smart people. There's 1.4 billion of them. Look at our schools. They are brilliant. We can't ignore this brilliance by not letting them in. Yes, if we don't give them NVIDIA, they may delay their processing of CPU or whatever on their system by a month or two or a year. Guess what? They're building it. They are building it. They don't need the NVIDIAs of the world. In a year, we just made them self-sufficient.
On one hand, we could have had the value of actually providing to their economy and the exchange where we would be earning that money. Now we've just contained that into their own country and said, why don't you keep all those profits and innovation for yourself?
And they're doing it, and they're going to Africa. They have car manufacturing entities in Europe. They control the boards in Greece and Spain. Hey, with this protective nature, we ain't winning, guys.
No, it's almost like they're scared and they're defensive.
The illusion is doing the same thing and expecting a different result is insanity. This is insanity.
And the number of mistakes that we repeat throughout history because we didn't learn from the past experience, it's like we just suddenly forgot. We're like goldfish.
Yeah.
Our memory is gone every 8 seconds and we don't realize we tried something in the past, it didn't work. That's just crazy.
Now, here's the other thing. Let me tell you. So, AI is the future, whether we like it or don't like it. Okay. Yes, our jobs are going to be changed. What we do is going to be. But hey, AI is promising somewhere north of $15 trillion of economic impact a year. 15 trillion. Let me put that in context. That is 10 times the GDP of Russia, 10 times the GDP of Canada, it's times the size of India. It's almost equal to the GDP of China.
And I think it's almost
every year. That's $15 trillion every year, starting in a few years. And that's starting in the next few years, by 2030, I think. Okay? This is absolutely unstoppable. Now, in order for us to win, we need to be good at AI. To be good at AI machines are based on data. Just like when you want to build a building, you need concrete, you need bricks, you need iron, you need plumbing material, you need electrical. That's how you build a building. When you want to build an AI machine, you need data. Look, we are so fascinated with nonsensical privacy. I'm not against, we are so fascinated with this idea of privacy. Nobody shares with nothing. You know what? Google has our data, but that's okay. Amazon does, but that's okay. So we're containing it to some big players who are building stuff. The rest of the country, all of the innovative people, they don't have access to it. And we're saying privacy, 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 privacy. China has none of that nonsense. Companies actually share their data. In Japan, 100 manufacturing companies agreed to share their data, although they're competitors, because they're all lifting the boat. Fast forward 20, 30, 40, 50 years. If we don't have data, we're not going to have good AI machines. Are we going to fall behind? You bet we are. There is no doubt in my mind that if we continue the path that we are with the individualistic approach, not being truly entrepreneurial, not being truly capitalistic, if that's where you are. Nobody said capitalism should be harsh. Nobody said that we should leave people out on the street on hunger. Nobody said that we should screw people. Capitalism is not about, it's about risk and return. But the return is not necessarily money. It's the return that the society gets better, that employees get better, that investors get better, the partners get better.
Sid, if we could do a 2-hour special with you, or even have you back as a guest again, because I have 1,000 more questions I want to ask you, because I find that your thinking and strategic alignment is similar to what myself and many other entrepreneurs discuss and talk about, but we're not aware that very smart people like you exist that have similar beliefs, that know the
If
inner
you have
workings.
come to that conclusion, you are smart as well, my friend. You all just need to jump in the field and start playing the game. If you're not in the field, you will never get a home run. You just got to be in the field.
I know people out there are playing this game, and it's up to you as how often you want to play, how big do you want your game, how many home runs do you want. And I just want to get to that point where I'll be able to take care of myself and help others too. I can give back. It's not just about my own financial security. That should be fine. It's about, not extracting that wealth from everyone, giving back value.
It's not a sequential. This is actually a good point. We think it's a sequential process. First, I sell something. Then I abuse my employees. Then I give back. When I'm all safe and good, this is the individualistic thing that has messed up part of it. When I'm good, then I will give back. When I'm good, then I care for my employees. No, care for them today. Because if you don't care for them, if they don't get the bundle of satisfaction from you, they will not, I guarantee you, bring their best game to the table. They will not, because they decide what they want to give back to you as the employer. They decide if they are committed, if they bring their entire force of innovation and creativity, if they're every 3 o'clock in the morning, they're thinking about the success of you and your company and their family. When you're aligned, it's the same. It's harmonized. It's not us against them. It's a symphony. It's a music. It's a harmony that's being played. So this is a problem of sequential. I know we're probably at the end of your rope, but I want to add one other thing. So my latest book, and when I say latest, it's a couple of years old. It's called You Are Not Them, okay? It's the authentic entrepreneur's way. That's the title. But the reason I bring this up is I want to leave you with something that none of us, none of your listeners, we are not them. We're not Elon Musk. We're not Bill Gates. We're not Steve Jobs. We're not them. So the philosophy, your exchange is very different than their exchange. What you have is different than what they have. The times that you operate in is very different. Your environment, where you come from, your education, your friends, your employees, your customers, everything is different. You're not them, not because you're inferior or superior, but because every game is different. And you have to find your own entrepreneurial way, your own exchange, and your way of harmonizing. Here's the thing. It's good to read how-to books of how to balance the books and how to do debits and credits and marketing techniques and this, but those are techniques of doing things. The fact that you know how to drive, which you should know, doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a great vacation when you drive to San Diego or Canada or New York. That is up to you. The how-to vehicles do not guarantee your success. You are not them, and the tools that they provide you are necessary, but they don't guarantee an outcome.
I'm looking forward to taking all of this insight here and then using it to harmonize myself, my life, my business, colleagues around me, and help to inspire others. I wanted to leave an opportunity for people to get in touch with you, to find out more about you, to get connected with Sid Mohasseb here. You can go to LinkedIn/IN/MOHASSEB. Check out his other books. We'll have links available down in the description. Sid, are there any other places we can find out more about the speaking events that you've done, the books that you've written, the content that you suggest? I think other entrepreneurs would really love it.
Yeah, if you go to mohasseb.com, you could find lots of stuff about me, speaking, companies, and all that sort of stuff. But You can also go to Google and type my name, and you'll see lots of articles and TED Talks and stuff like that. I also post all of my articles because people will say, oh, I missed this one on Forbes, I missed that one on this. So I post all of them under my Medium account. The Medium is the place. So if you go to Medium and Sid Mohasseb, you will find all of my articles in one place. And there's, I don't know, hundreds of it.
Thank you for making that available to us. I know my time in college, I loved having access to all the articles and research papers, and I was surprised to learn that the public didn't have access to this. And I'm sure you speak on many insightful topics that can help change our perception a bit about the world and more into reality and more into focusing on people.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I have, in a small way, provoked your audience to exercise their entrepreneurial capabilities, because they are the art and they are the artist. They are the ones who build their next best version.
Sid, thank you so much. We're definitely going to invite you back if you can make the time. We want to do like hour-long, 2-hour-long specials with you just to get into your head. But we're going to check out more of your articles and link all those down in the show notes and the description here. Sid, we appreciate your time and your insight.
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much, Sid. We appreciate it.